Imagine kissing your family goodbye, boarding a plane for a routine flight, and expecting to land in just a few hours. But instead of landing, you vanish. For 37 years, the world thinks you are dead. Then, one ordinary morning, your plane suddenly appears out of thin air, requesting to land. But when the doors finally open, the people waiting on the ground don't find survivors. They find a scene so terrifying, it defies the laws of physics, time, and life itself. This is the chilling legend of Pan Am Flight 914.
Hello and welcome. If you're new here, welcome to Amazing 5.
It was a beautiful, sunny morning on July 2nd, 1955. The runway in New York was buzzing with the excitement of summer travel. On the tarmac stood the Pan American Flight 914, a majestic silver bird shining in the sunlight. It was a DC-4, a classic propeller plane of that era. On board, 92 passengers settled into their seats, fastening their seatbelts and looking out the small round windows. There were businessmen with briefcases, couples on vacation, and children clutching their favorite toys. They were headed for Miami and eventually South America. It was supposed to be a simple 18-hour journey. The engines roared to life, the propellers spun into a blur, and the plane lifted gracefully into the blue sky. For the first 3 hours, everything was perfect. The pilot radioed in, reporting clear skies and smooth sailing. But then, silence. The blip on the radar screen flickered and disappeared. The control tower tried to make contact. Flight 914, do you copy? Static. They tried again. Nothing. It was as if the sky had simply opened up and swallowed the massive metal machine whole. Search parties were scrambled immediately. Ships combed the Atlantic Ocean. Helicopters flew low over the waves. They were looking for debris, oil slicks, or luggage. Anything that would confirm a crash. But they found absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no bodies. It was the perfect disappearance. As weeks turned into months, the heartbroken families of those 92 people were forced to accept the impossible. Their loved ones were gone forever. The case was closed. The world kept turning. The 1950s became the 60s. Men walked on the moon, and technology advanced. The memory of Flight 914 faded into a dusty file in a cold storage room. Fast forward 37 years. The date is October 12, 1992. The location is Caracas, Venezuela. It was a normal, boring day for Juan de la Corte, an air traffic controller. He was watching the radar screen, sipping his coffee, managing the modern jetliners crisscrossing the sky. Suddenly, a new dot appeared on his radar. It wasn't supposed to be there. It had no digital signature, no transponder signal. It was just a ghost echo. Juan grabbed his binoculars and looked out at the horizon. Through the clouds, he saw it. It wasn't a modern jet. It was an ancient, propeller-driven plane, looking like something out of a museum. As it got closer, he could see the faded paint on the tail, Pan American, an airline that hadn't existed for a year. The radio in the tower crackled to life. A voice, sounding confused and panicked, pierced through the static. "Where are we?" the pilot asked. "We are Pan Am Flight 914 from New York. We are scheduled to land in Miami at 9:55 a.m. on July 2nd, 1955. The control room went deathly silent. Juan felt a shiver run down his spine. He pressed the button on his microphone. "Captain," he said, his voice trembling, "you are in Caracas, Venezuela. And today is October 12th, 1992. On the other end of the radio, there was a gasp. The pilot sounded terrified. "No, that's impossible!" he screamed. Despite the confusion, the ground crew cleared the runway. They had to get these people down safely. The ancient plane touched down smoothly, its tires screeching against the tarmac. Fire trucks and ambulances raced toward the aircraft, sirens wailing. They expected to find confused elderly people, passengers who had somehow survived a 37-year detour. But as the ground crew approached the plane, they noticed something unsettling. The windows were dark. There was no movement inside. The engines sputtered and died, leaving an eerie silence hanging over the airfield. Then the main cabin door creaked open. A security team moved in first. They stepped into the dark cabin, flashlights cutting through the gloom. The air inside was stale, smelling of old leather and something else, something rotting. What they saw next would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The seats were full. All 92 passengers were there. They were strapped in, sitting upright. But they weren't people anymore. The cabin was filled with skeletons. Rows upon rows of human remains sat in the clothes of the 1950s. A skeleton in a business suit held a coffee cup that had dried up decades ago. A small skeleton clutched a dusty teddy bear. Newspapers dated July 1955 lay open on their bony laps. The security team, horrified, pushed forward to the cockpit. They had spoken to the pilot just minutes ago. He had landed the plane. He had to be alive. They kicked open the cockpit door. There, sitting in the captain's chair, was another skeleton. He was wearing the uniform, his headset still over his skull. And the most terrifying part? His bony hand was still firmly gripping the throttle controls. How could a dead man talk on the radio? How could a plane with no fuel fly for 37 years? Scientists later speculated about time loops and wormholes, the theory that the plane had entered a tear in the fabric of space-time, where seconds for the passengers were decades for the rest of the world. Perhaps, in the moment they exited the wormhole and time caught up to them, they aged 37 years in a single second, turning to dust the moment the wheels touched the ground. The mystery of Flight 914 remains unsolved. Was it a glitch in the universe or a ghost ship sailing the winds of time? All we know is that for those 92 souls, a routine trip became an eternal journey into the unknown.